Recently, Bandai did a huge stream for all of their card games, and that of course includes the Digimon Card Game. They announced a lot of stuff happening in EX6 and BT17, but one of the things that kind of went under the radar a little bit was the fact that they're going to do a global release for BT20, and we assume onwards. And I think that is quite a big deal for a card game like Digimon. So in today's video, I'm going to discuss why that is a huge deal. Hi everyone, VortexTCG here, and yeah, global release from BT20 and potentially onwards. It's quite huge news, especially if you've played other card games outside of Digimon. Now, it's obviously that this is going to be a huge deal, but it also brings some positives and some negatives along with it as well. But I think it's important to realize that other games have done things a little bit more differently. For example, a lot of the games that come from Asia, such as Yu-Gi-Oh, still use a split schedule. So it will go live in Asia first, and then later on down the line, it will go into Western markets. The difference here for Yu-Gi-Oh though is that it has TCG or Western products that are exclusive just for them, and then they eventually also go back to Asia boxes and promotional cards as well. However, for an example of a game that has just actually went global is the Pokemon trading card game. And I think for a lot of people, it just makes a lot of sense that Pokemon is a global trading card game. I mean, it's arguably the biggest property in the world. It is obviously a very collectible game with its trainer cards and some of the Pokemon full arts. And I think the most important thing is that it has the money to go global. I think it's a company that's made the most amount of money or generated the most revenue. So it makes sense for a game that is, you know, first used to come out in Asia first, then Western territories, to just be a global release. But obviously, we're not here to talk about Pokemon. We're talking about the Digimon card game. So why decide to make the Digimon card game go global on BT20? Well, I think there are a lot of reasons why, but I think arguably the biggest reason was the recent ban list. So let's talk about that real quick, because in the recent ban list, you have seen stuff like Apocalypse, Anubismon, Garuru X and Gabumon X Antibody being hit on the ban list. However, when these cards were announced for us, these were products that weren't even out yet, but they were making such a huge impact in the Japanese and other Asian territories meta. And so Bandai decided that they would essentially limit these cards before they even came out. Of course, they happened in March, so a lot of EX5 cards you could still play until March. However, the BT15 ones essentially get hit 2 weeks after the launch. And that's a huge deal because it essentially says for a lot of sets that this is a dead set. For example, a lot of talk is going on about the BT15 Exceed Apocalypse set, because now it seems like the set is more dead than alive and has less chance of getting cards that you want. For example, with all the recent hits to the ban list, Apocalypse is now hit, so you're going to be less likely to be happy when you get one of the free secrets that is not good and you can't play it. Also goes well with the Metal Garuru secret as well, because there's going to be less likely more people playing that deck now, because Garuru X Antibody and Gabumon X Antibody were hit on the ban list as well. So essentially the set only has one secret that you may want to go for. And of course, this is just a huge hit on the competitive scene as a whole. It essentially means that our meta is going to be widely different to what it was for Japan and other Asian territories. People might not like it. This essentially for Bandai is money that they're going to lose a lot of, because people know what they want. They don't want to spend loads of money on a set where a lot of the cards, especially at the higher rarity, are just not worth it. We saw it in, for example, I believe it was BT11, where we had Darkness Bagramon and Shoutmon X7 Superior Mode. No one brought the set, those secrets essentially, because those cards essentially on release were only like €3. For a secret that from a recent set being €3 is kind of crazy, and it definitely did hurt the impact of that set. So if I'm being realistic, if they decide to release all the sets at the same time, there's going to be less chance of you having a situation like an Apocalypse or, you know, a Garurumon or a Anubismon happening, because you're going to be playing the same format as Asia, so they're going to be more reluctant to hit straight away. However, However, as we've, gone through the format now, they're more likely to hit it because they realize that it is a problem. Now, obviously, this is a bit of a slippery slope because you want to be hitting cards that are problematic. Asian territories used to, I guess people would say, beta test the game because they got the cards early and then it would impact our English format. It happened with, for example, BT10 with Crossheart. I think it's quite clear. The Bandai are losing money from when they hit stuff prematurely or before the set even comes out in the English territories, and they're losing a lot of money for it. So they're going to stop doing that by doing a global release. I think it's also important to understand how aware Digimon is currently in the card game community. I think people look at Digimon as like a card game that you'd play alongside another big card game. For example, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic. There's obviously people that play Digimon as their main game, myself included, but I think for a lot of people it is the secondary game. And because of that, Digimon has lost a lot of momentum, especially when you compare it to games like One Piece that Bandai also produce. If you've looked at all the tournaments that have been going on for One Piece, for example, they're huge compared to the tournaments that happen for Digimon. Just to give an example, the recent championship finals that happened in Europe had 2,500 people. And I don't even think Digimon even hit anything close to that number. So I think if they decide to go for a global release, Digimon will gain a little bit of a momentum, because then when cards do get revealed for both the English and Asian territories, you're going to be surprised when new cards get announced. For example, if one of your favorite Digimon gets support, you'll be looking at it and be like, wow, I can't wait to play this deck. And then you realize, oh my god, the set comes out in a week. I can't wait to play it. And I think that's it's a huge thing that people don't really talk about when it comes to a global release, because one of the issues that we have currently is that we will look at all the releases or the leaks that are happening for the Asia version of the Digimon card game. We'll be like, wow, that's really good. I can't wait to play that in 6 to 8 months. The game loses a lot of momentum. You kind of get an understanding of what the decks are going to be, so you just build that and you don't really test things out. And because of things getting released so quickly after reveals and stuff like that, I think the discovery stage of the card game is going to really shine. People are going to be wanting to test different decks. People want to be testing different combinations. That doesn't really happen in the current game at the moment. We just look at results in Japan and other Asian territories. There's no reason to essentially test on our own. Of course you can, and obviously you should be doing it, but for a lot of people, I think people just look at decks that come out of Japan and they go, okay, I guess that's what I'm building for this set. Now as a global release, you don't really have that. You have to actually explore the set yourself, and I think that is very important for the health and longevity of the Digimon card game. However, there can be some negatives. The biggest negative that I can think of straight away is shipping. If you've played Digimon for any period of time from first set to around EX3, even later than that, shipping delays have always been an issue for this card game. Sometimes it wasn't that huge, maybe like a day or so, but sometimes it's been whole months where we haven't got the set when we needed to get it on release. I'm a bit worried that a global release, that might end up happening a little bit more, because you have to get everything essentially shipped to the locations, or get loads of distributors on the same page. It can be tricky, and so if it was to go global, which it is, I can see delays happening quite a bit. I also think it's important to note that this is the first Bandai game that is going global release essentially. So I think this is kind of like a test for future Bandai card games, mainly One Piece, because if they can do One Piece at the same time globally, I think that's going to be a huge draw for them. And I feel like testing it on something like Digimon, which has, lost momentum, lost the player base, and pretty much all gone to One Piece at this point, I think it's a good tester for other card games that might be coming out in the future, or other current ones that are happening right now. That's all just hearsay. I'm not 100% sure if that's the case. These are just my thoughts on the situation. Overall, I'm actually very, very happy that global release is happening in BT20, and I hope onwards, because I want to experience the game in a way that I haven't before. At the moment, when it comes to, making decks, looking at formats, it feels like it's already sorted out. It feels like there's no real change to any sort of meta, unfortunately. And I think that would be really cool if we're able to experience that, opening our packs, building decks, seeing what works, what doesn't, and then building the format as it goes along, instead of us looking at Japanese deck lists and just going, yeah, I'm playing that version, and then we don't deviate from that version. version. But yeah, those are just my thoughts. What do you think about global release for Digimon? Are you excited? Are you a bit hesitant? Let me know in the comments section down below. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.